Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Musician Guidance Podcast. My name is Mack, your host, and I'm joined alongside a very special guest today. He is a professional singer, songwriter, producer, and YouTube content creator with nearly 100,000 subscribers that seeks to provide independent artists everything he knows so that they can succeed. Without further ado, Charles Cleyn, how are you doing today?
I'm great. That was a lovely introduction. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome, and
So,
I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hop on the podcast here and share your knowledge.
I'm psyched to be here. Very excited to talk music and marketing and business. These are the things I'm really passionate about in my career as a singer songwriter and YouTuber. So let's dig in.
Let's get into it. I like that. And I know our community as well is filled with artists that are wanting to grow their online presence. And obviously, you have succeeded with that. So I'm excited to kind of pick your brain and learn more about your vast experience to help our community and also myself. Before we get into that, though, I would just like to give yourself an opportunity to share a little bit more about yourself, how you got into music, and the inspiration to start a YouTube channel.
Like a lot of singer songwriters and out in the world, I started playing music when I was young, singing growing up, and joined a band in high school and started playing cover songs in bars in high school. And then actually, no, that wouldn't have been high school. I wasn't playing in bars, but after, and then just kind of fell into it because I love to sing and play guitar and play piano. And I kind of actually put it on the side after I decided to go to university and to join a company after university because I really I love business and I love marketing. And it was kind of like I had the fork in the road. Should I go into music full time or should I do the business side? And I decided after university to do the business side first. Then after about 6 years, I was like, okay, I think and now I want to, like I turned left before. Now I want to turn right and go to the music thing full time. And uh, so it was like a bit of a pause. I put a pause on the music stuff for the 6 years while I was learning business and working at a company. And then I had to like just get right back into it when I decided to do it full time. And YouTube was the approach from me when I wanted to start building a fan base.
Mm-hmm.
So actually first started a YouTube channel because I did want to vlog my entire experience.
Okay.
And I did a vlog video every day for 115 days.
Oh, wow.
And they're still on YouTube. They're hilarious because I have no idea really what I'm doing, but I'm documenting everything. And there's like maybe 50 views on each one still, but they're all there. But I made them now, those like four years ago. So it slowly just built over time, and then it really started growing during the pandemic. And I've been able to leverage that with my own career now as a singer songwriter and making music. And the inspiration was to continue doing that because it's been an avenue for me to build an audience.
Right. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And you talked about the business side of the industry there too. And that is something we, preach at Musician Guidance. Because whether it's in music marketing or just marketing, the brand, an artist's brand, it's
Mhm.
quite important. And I know you have a lengthy resume in regards to that. And you kept mentioning this company, which I'll mention is Shopify. And I know you were
Mhm.
able to help the company grow to an initial public offering. Can you kind of
Mhm.
describe that and how you leveraged your business knowledge in music?
Yeah, I so I started at Shopify in Ottawa, Canada at the time, and uh, it was straight out of university at that point. So I was quite green and fresh with even learning how to run a business. And I was lucky to have a real solid group of mentors at the company who taught me everything there was about um, building great products, but also marketing and building audiences. And I learned everything there really that I know about business and marketing. And I spent I spent almost 6 years there, and it was kind of like it sounds weird, but like a blink of an eye, like because there was a lot of work to be done during that time. And that's why during the time I rarely thought about music because I was so deep in the business side of things.
Right.
And because of all that, I like sometimes I'm like, oh man, I wish I just went into music like right after high school. I would have been so much better at guitar or music production or whatever. Maybe I would have been big, but at
Right.
this point, so but then I'm like, you know what, I probably it's hard to say because now I know how to build businesses and build audiences because of that experience. So it's really I try not to like have those regretful feelings, but I'm happy with the story that's been kind of unfolding right now. And the main things I picked up at Shopify were being able to market and 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 like the actual things you can do to build audiences, things that they don't teach you in college and university, and
Right.
things that you can't really even learn on online courses. The only way to do this is like, do you have a business, and can you actually go and like actually marketing a thing? That's how you
Right.
learn a thing. And so I
No,
was able to get firsthand experience with that.
that's awesome. And I totally agree. And it's almost a sense of trial and error too.
Hmm.
To really, yeah, to really find what works. And I
Yeah,
also,
you're building musician guidance, you and your team, and like you have to learn how to do the things, and it's giving you not only great practice and a skill set, but you're doing it right, and that's you don't learn that in the classroom.
exactly. Agreed. And you'll figure out that, you need to make pivots, whether it's changes in the industry or just, whatever else it may be. And as much as you're taught in school that there may be this, standard plan to build a business, it's as you touched on there. No, you just got to get in the field, do it yourself, and you'll learn as you go.
Hmm.
And I also read online, you can tell me if this is right or not, and if you want to touch on it too much. But I read that you left a six-figure job, which I assume was the one at Shopify, and then you
Hmm.
moved from Canada to Berlin and have been
Hmm.
working towards making music and inspiring others every day since. And
Hmm.
looking at that from, an outsider, that just goes to show your work ethic and determination. And I'm curious, from your perspective, can you describe some of the obstacles artists face when working towards their dream, and what advice would you give them?
Well, that's very kind of you to say all that stuff. You are right in saying that. I did, yeah. I'm I have that online somewhere, and I think the biggest obstacles that new artists face when trying to grow a career in the music industry is just to really understand like marketing really, and like building and like how to build a fan base. Like what does that mean even? And does that mean just like posting on Instagram and like getting followers? Does that mean like building an email list? Does that mean like building a YouTube channel, TikTok channel? And like what are the different avenues to build a fan base? Because I think a lot of the obstacles are just jumping into things without knowing what the outcomes and consequences might be of spending your time on certain things. Like if you spend a lot of your time and you think it's uh, worthwhile to spend it on Instagram, like a very specific example, that could be right, but it also might not be a right thing for you to do. So it's about knowing like what are the options out there in terms of marketing, what are the channels,
Mm-hmm.
and then like doubling down on a channel that's going to work for you. And sometimes, of course, that's going to take time of actually experimenting with lots, which is why it's such a struggle for a beginner artist and anyone building a business, because there's too many options. You haven't started doing any options, so you have to try a little bit of everything. And that takes so much time and so much effort. And it causes a lot of people to give up along the way because it's like, oh, I've spent a year building an Instagram channel. I got 500 followers. Then you give up, and then you don't have enough energy to try the next thing.
Right.
So it's like trying a little bit of everything at once requires a significant amount of energy, but then it doesn't mean you have to continue that way. You're going to find a way a channel that's really good, and you can double down on that channel. And then over time, you can start to scale and hire people, and especially when you start monetizing and things like that. But the beginning is so hard. Like it's like anything. Like it's so hard. Like I don't blame it for people wanting to give up. Like it's just really hard when you're trying to sell, and especially with art and music, you have to self promotion,
Mhm.
and it's like a sticky thing to do. I still don't love it, to like self promote. Yeah.
Right. No, I know what you mean. And seeing as you were touching on the social aspect there, let's kind of dive down that road a little bit. Because we have a community of artists that are really trying to take their music to the next level and grow their online presence. What advice would you give to them that have been trying to grow an audience for years but have just not yet been able to gain any traction? You mentioned all
Mhm.
these routes. Is it just
Mhm.
about continuing with it, continuing to try new things until something seems to work, or is there something else that
Mhm.
you? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say if you've been trying to build a fan base for like many years and nothing's gaining traction, like you're saying, that I would say it's definitely time to like reset, because it shouldn't take years and years to do it. It will take probably like maybe, I would say within 3 years you can kind of figure out what's working. Definitely
Mhm.
like what you should be doubling down on. And sometimes you can figure that out within a year. For me, it took about almost 3 years. And like, so I guess to answer, like, to kind of get into that a bit more, um, yeah, I would say if someone's really struggling to gain traction, they have to double, like, look at what they've been doing. And if it's just, for example, like going back to Instagram and TikTok, those are like two common channels, right, that people are
Right.
growing fan bases now. Like it's important for people to understand that those aren't necessarily the channels you have to do.
Well
They
said.
can be, yeah, they can be, and they might be, but um, you don't have to do that. They're not discovery, or not. They're not they're not search based. So like there's a lot of like, and that's just coming back to marketing. Like I'm getting like really specific here on like some things, but
That's
marketing,
great.
you can think of marketing as like there's two there's really only two ways to be found if you have a product. And let's say your product is music, because it is probably. People can either search for you, or they are like disrupted by you. So like, um, people are like searching for music on, like, with hashtags on social, or in Google or in YouTube, and they come across you, or you like surface them an ad, and then they're disrupted. They're looking at cooking videos, and then they're like, oh, listen to my new single. Like you could put an ad right in front of them. And once you start to understand that really those are the like high level two ways to get exposed, then you have to choose a channel within one of those pillars. So you can pay for ads, or you can start making content for Google, YouTube, and like the organic reach that TikTok and Instagram has. So that's really it. Like, and then you can double down on one of those ways. But there's so many more channels within those ways, that's what I mean, coming back to like experimenting with many things. Like
Right.
maybe it's like a different market. Maybe it's not the American market or the Canadian market or the German market. Maybe you're going to be huge in Japan. And like there's different social apps in Japan. There's different distribution channels. So it's understanding like where's your market, and this all comes back to like what your product is, right?
Right.
And like, and we haven't even touched on the product yet. Like your product has to be super awesome. You can't have a bad song, and that's why it's so hard as a musician too, because you're making the music as well as marketing it.
Mm-hmm.
and it's difficult for creatives, I think, to be marketers too, because there's just two different ways to think about things. You have to kind of be like the ruthless business marketer person, then you got to be the creative, thoughtful artist to make
Right.
great products. And maybe the answer there is like you don't do the marketing. You pay for someone else to do it for you.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes that's not a bad thing.
Not at all. Yeah. And I think as you were touching on there, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you say focusing on the data? Because one thing you mentioned there was, your listeners might be in Japan, as you said, and Japan has different distribution channels. But I know some artists um, kind of make an assumption about who their audience is, and then they'll continue to market using channels that reach that audience, even when that may not be their audience. So would you kind of just suggest taking a step back, looking at your data and actually finding out where you're listening, where your listeners are from, and then crafting a strategy around that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like absolutely, you're right. If you're if you if you're if you're making a product where your friends and maybe your assumption of what your market is doesn't like, then you kind of have to get on board with that, because you can't force a product down
Right.
the market. And that's also is like, you need to have a heart with yourself. If you're an artist listening to this and you were like, you want to make music for a certain market, but what if you find out that market is in Japan? Because we're using that example.
Right.
Like, what do you think of that? Would you go to Japan? Would you tour there? Would you be okay being huge in Japan but not being known anywhere else? And if maybe you're like, yeah, that definitely, like, right on, I'll do that for sure. But maybe you're like, no, I want to be big in America, or I want to be on the top 40. Well, then you might need to change your product, because you can't have it both ways. It's you have to just have you have to have the product and you have to the market, and both those things have to work together.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just can't. I know, like, people say if you build it, they will come, kind of thing, but that's really not true. Like, if you build a great song and you don't tell anyone about it, like, no one's going to listen to it.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Agreed.
sucks, because I would love that to work. I would
Right.
just sit and write music all day, and then eventually be like, oh yeah, they're going to come. Like, the people will come, and then no, but no one's going to come.
I think that's a very good point. I think unfortunately a lot of artists do believe that. So they invest a lot of, if not all their budget into creating music solely, thinking that when they make great music, the audience will find them. But as you just hit the nail on the head with, unfortunately, that's not how it works. You need to
Mm-hmm.
invest in marketing too. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, marketing plays a huge role in not only growing followers, but converting those followers to paid supporters. Are you able to provide some in-depth real world guidance on how artists can monetize their fan base?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a tricky one, and I just say tricky because I think that artists monetize too early, and so one of the biggest also lessons I've learned in marketing and business is, like, just build an audience for free. Like, don't charge them anything. And is eventually, when you have a lot of people, then you can start monetizing. Isn't a problem. Like, if you have like 100,000 people that love you, and you haven't even monetized anything at all, then that's fine. Like, at that point, you'll be like, oh, I have a product, or like, can you buy my CD, or can you buy my merch, or I did this thing for you and I'm charging this amount. People will buy it, and then the monetization thing is solved. But that, like, the monetization thing isn't hard at all. The hard thing is building the audience. And then,
Interesting.
like, just the focus should be on building I'm like kind of like thinking of yourself as like working for free in a way for a while until you build the audience and then you monetize. Because like think of it like any like app you search for on the app store. If it's free, you're going to download it
Mhm.
and you'll play around with it, and maybe after a few weeks you're like, oh, this is actually pretty good. I'd pay for it now, versus the app that charges you up front $5 or $2. You're like, yeah, I'm not that interested.
Even
And like,
99 cents.
yeah, it's like, so if an artist is like, if I find an independent artist, I'm liking it, then I follow them, and then the second post they're like, buy my thing or get on my Patreon account. I'm like, well, I just met you. Like I don't know you. Yeah, so it's kind of like
Mhm.
soft selling a little bit when you're an early artist to monetize, and then that becomes a lot easier when you have a bigger following, because you can then slowly monetize that audience.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree with that. And when building off that and kind of switching to focus on music releases, I'd love to pick your brain about that too. For artists that are new to releasing original music, what would you suggest they do to ensure their first, or I guess their next release, is as successful as it can be?
I would say the first release is the most fun and the most difficult.
Okay.
Uh, Most fun because it's the first one, you have no idea, there's no expectations, or maybe there is expectations, but you don't have any benchmark, right, of
Right.
any past releases. So, and there's a lot of buzz around it because it's your first one, so you can really leverage your friends and family network, which will probably like get you. That should be like the number one thing for your first release, unless you've built a significant following on some channel where you can leverage your first release, which is hard, but it's possible. Like diverging this a little bit, like if you were to experiment like on TikTok, for example, and just writing songs on TikTok and releasing them as sounds and maybe hooks and things like that. Like if you do that for a while, maybe one of them will get pretty big, and then people are like pumped to hear it, and then you can release the song that people are excited about. Like that's
Right.
good strategy, and it's free to do. You just sit in your room, you're producing a song, your guitar, piano, whatever, singing with a backing track. Just pump it out on TikTok, get people to discover it, and then if a video gets I don't know, a million views, release that song like as soon as possible,
Right.
and then leverage that specific people that watch that video. Those, but
I think
that's kind of like, well, yeah, like best case scenario. A lot easier said than done.
right, but I still think that's great advice, because even if you don't find that, hit, you might find what isn't resonating with your audience. And something I would say is, apart from your friends and family, no one is probably um, waiting on your first release until you build
Mm.
that hype around it. So I really
Mhm.
like that. I really like that insight you just gave.
Yeah, it's kind of like the idea of just like doing a lot of, or like testing a lot of your songs, because it's like testing, it's like getting free like focus groups. Like Coca-Cola would be
Exactly.
like, oh, like get 15 people in a room and like try the new Coke flavor, and then they're like make all these adjustments. You just can do that every day on TikTok. If you post 10 songs, you will see, and you can rank them on all those videos of what song that you got had like what song gets the most views.
Hmm.
Does it mean that's your best song? Maybe. Is it the song that people want to hear based on the TikTok algorithm? Yeah, it is. Um, then is that the song you want to make personally? That's, I guess, a personal question where you know you have to decide yourself, if you want to make songs that sell, or if you want to make songs that are like really like you don't care, you just want to make music, uh,
Right.
which is fine, but it's not really a good approach if you're trying to build a business. You want to build a product that people care about, and if you just want to make music that you care about, it's going to be a lot harder to build that business, because you're the only one that cares about it. And if no one
Exactly.
else cares about it, then it's gonna be a lot harder to find those people. But then again, things happen. Like maybe it's like the brand is like, you just don't care. And then people are like, I like that person because they don't give, like they don't care. Like I'm just gonna follow them. And like
Yeah.
that's a thing. So like all the answers to all of these questions are just like, just do it. Like just test it out.
Yeah.
Just like make a piece of content and put it out. And then coming back to your question, they're like, I wouldn't overthink your first release. I would really not just like get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I overthought my first release way too much. Like in the studio, details of different parts and like about specifically like the product, all about the production, and way too much overthinking about it, and then overthinking all the marketing, and then worrying about like, oh, this is my first release on Spotify, and then I won't be able to pitch the Spotify curators because I won't have my Spotify for Artists account yet. So should I release a bad song first and then release my good song so I can pitch to the Spotify curators? And then like overthinking it that way, like all that stuff. First of all, the Spotify for curators pitch thing doesn't really even work. You can pitch on the Spotify for Artists, like, but it's rare. Like there's too many submissions that they can't handle that volume. So just don't overthink anything. If you're a new artist waiting on your first release, just don't overthink it, get it out, and then make the next one a bit better. Try to learn from what you just published and make it better next time.
Very well said. And kind of the theme of this podcast so far has been, just try, just get it out there. And one thing I want to add to that is we had the Longest Johns on the podcast a while ago. They're a cappella band that sings sea shanties. And who would have thought TikTok would have been something that they really blew up on? They posted a sea shanty on TikTok and it did extremely well. And that kind of led to their, success. And so again, just try. Like the platform that you think might not work could be the one that takes you to the next level with your career. So I think what you've been talking about, just try, put it out there, make it, test, see what works, see what doesn't, go from there. I think that's brilliant advice. And then
absolutely.
All right. And just to kind of tie everything together, what services or tools can artists implement, whether that is when promoting their music or when converting followers to customers, to automate the process, ensure multiple touch points with followers, and just really take their music to the next level and monetize it?
I'm definitely a fan of building an email list as like having a touch point and owning that audience versus sounds bad, like owning people. Like you're not owning the audience. You're like, you have the actual thing. You have the email. I can go and email a person one-on-one. With an Instagram follower, I can Instagram message them, but I don't really have that, right? Like there's a lot more you can do with an email, like with marketing, retargeting, and just being able to automate that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's much harder on Instagram and TikTok. So that's why I'm a fan of it. In terms of like specific platforms, the MailChimp is pretty good. I started for free with MailChimp, and you get, I think, 2,000 contacts, I think, for free. And it's a great little tool to start building an audience. And then when you get over 2,000, you have to start paying. You could have a Shopify store, and you can sell your merch on Shopify and build an email audience there, and also sell your merch through Shopify on Spotify, which is valuable as well if you have merch.
Right.
And it just the thought of like having a place like funneling traffic, like the idea of like a funnel like that you would have in your baking cabinet or whatever. You have traffic from social apps and Google, YouTube, wherever you're posting and making content for, and then you're trying to funnel that into a specific point. And like earlier in our conversation, I think people funnel it too early to monetize too quickly, where when you don't have an audience yet, you only have a few hundred followers and no one really cares yet. So it's hard to get people to pay money they don't, if no one really cares yet. Wait for people to care, build an audience, and then you can funnel them into something to pay for. But to substitute that thing that you're paying for, if you're still early, you can have it be an email. And you can be like, give me your email for free, and then I'll give you something else. Like, I'll give you my next song that's not released yet, or I'll something of value that you can provide, or I'll give you a cool piece of content that I create every week. Like these things are known as lead magnets in business, right? Where it's you get something in return for something of value. And if you can think if you're in your head, like wrapping your head around, use any tool that will help you increase traffic at the top of the funnel and all the way to the bottom of the funnel, where people are where you want something to happen. And so having those links on TikTok, having that link on Instagram, on YouTube, on Google, like it all should make sense.
Right.
It all should be going to one thing.
Exactly. And I know artists are creatives and they like to create. And that's what I think is so important about the funnel. They can just create. And then after every post, they can have like a simple call to action that sends them to, the top of the funnel, and then which they can go through it automatically, or with it all being automated, as you said, with MailChimp or, other services too. So they don't really have to, because I know when I speak to artists, the one thing that really gets them going is marketing and having to, invest so much time into this. But there are funnels and they work great. So I'm kind of happy. I'm happy, you touched on that and you shared MailChimp. I think that's great. And email marketing in general.
It takes a little bit of time to get it up and running, like you say, but then when you set it, you can kind of forget it. You can have a bit of an automated email flow in MailChimp with something. And then you can focus on creating music and content and putting that out. And also, like what you said, artists don't like the business and marketing side of things, right? Especially like I also am frustrated sometimes with it too, and I just want to make some music, right? And what helped me with that was I started just thinking like that the social channels were just kind of like places for you to, like, getting over the fact that it's kind of like people are looking at it, just using it as like a learning opportunity to get things out. So like, and focus more on like the documenting style versus the creating, like just doing things every day and creating things versus making a perfect post and like getting it out there. Like just stop the perfect post and like editing and spending too much time on that. There's been so many times where I've been like, this is the best post, and I spent like a couple hours and I've like edited it and then it's got like 1,000 views, and then I pick up my guitar, do something, and then it's got 5,000 views. Like it just takes so much less effort. Don't think about it, and it usually does better. Now, depending if you're awesome at video editing and whatnot, I'm sure there's an argument there, but
But I think what you're touching on is the perfect post doesn't exist, and if you wait until you're ready, you may never do it. So just get it out there. If it's not up to, the standards you want it to be, that's okay, because maybe that kind of raw feel is what your audience wants. So again, no, I agree.
It's all about just getting things out, like just getting things out there so you can learn more about what you're good at too as an artist, and what kind of content people resonate with. And then everything you do should be like a signal, or there should be a feedback loop to what you should do next. So it's like, this video got 100 views. Okay, this video got 1,000 views. Why? Like, what do you think it was? It could be a couple different things, but what do you think the main things are? And then do that in the next video. Did it work? Did it not work? Okay, then try another thing. Or like every single thing should be making the next thing better. So you think about like thousands and thousands of posts, that 2,000th post is going to be incredible because you've learned 2,000 things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's something, I've talked about too, actually. Just looking back at previous content and making educated
Mhm.
decisions off of it. I think that is huge, and great advice. And then just lastly here, if there's anything I missed or something you were hoping I was going to ask and didn't, I would like to give yourself an opportunity to share anything you would like, which may help our community of aspiring musicians who are trying to make a name for themselves, monetize their music, and succeed in the music industry. Is there anything that comes to mind that you'd like to share?
I feel like I rambled a bit on things, so I hope a lot of it made sense. I just want to reiterate the fact that like it's an as an artist and as a trying to make a career in it, you have to be the creator and the marketer. And so that's like sometimes, like we mentioned it, it's okay to outsource one of those. And maybe you even find out you'd rather be the marketer. So you work with an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you want to be the artist. So work with a marketer. You really don't have to do both, because one thing, if you try doing both and you're not good at both, then it just might not work. And that's okay. Like it's completely normal. Like most people at companies, the product person won't be the marketer. That's why you have marketers. But and just the idea of like of testing and learning to to understand like what you're really good at and what you can do and what resonates with people, and that it never really ends too. That marketing isn't really a thing that ever ends. It's not a checklist. It's a constant chore in a way that has to be always done. And that it does get easier though, after your first release, and as you start releasing more music, it gets easier because you start understanding who likes your music and where they are, and you know where to go play shows, or you know where at least where to go play online shows, and you know who you're kind of talking to. But at the beginning, you're just kind of like, who am I talking to, right? Like who is
Right.
listening? And then it gets easier when you start to find out who those people are. But the beginning is really tough. So I like can understand anyone listening. If, just keep going and keep at it, and it will things will like the road will start to show itself as you keep doing more things.
Yeah, well said. One thing I like to say is never give up, but stop doing what isn't working. And that's kind of what you've been
Mm.
preaching in this whole thing. So like never give up, but if it's not working, you'll pivot to something else, because
Mm-hmm.
the more you
Right,
put into it, the more you'll learn, and then you'll figure out what works.
right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Charles, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I really appreciated the honesty in your answers, and I will let you know you're always welcome to come back on. In the meantime, though, that is going to conclude this episode. Charles, once again, thank you for sharing all that you did, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to do this. And for those listening, keep working hard. Let Charles be an inspiration to yourself that if you continue to put in the hard work, the outcome you desire will follow. Until next time, take care and keep making music.